Let's go ahead and get back to our guest tonight. Our guest tonight is Tom Medlin. Tom has a program that is on 8 p.m. Central. You can go to his website, which is www.w5kub.com. And his program is all about ham radio. We're going to talk more with Tom here in just a second. His motto is bringing ham radio to you. It's a great hobby to get your kids, grandkids, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, uncles, whatever involved with. They do the show on Tuesday night. And, of course, they also broadcast in the International Shortwave Band at 5110 kilohertz in the International Shortwave Broadcasting Band. Let's go ahead and get Tom back on. Tom, I hope that's you on the line.
I'm here. You know, I thought we were going to have to use ham radio for the second half of this interview because our phones dropped.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. But we connected back to you.
Yeah, I saw. I was talking, and all of a sudden looked over, and I noticed the lights were out. So anyway, thank you for calling back. Tom, you're a shortwave broadcaster as well. Of course, your show is streamed live on 5110 kilohertz in the International Shortwave Broadcast Band. People from around the world or different parts of the country even get to hear your show that way.
Well, they do, and you know, shortwave is a funny thing. You know, you can be sitting there at your radio and hearing Moscow over in Russia coming in loud and clear, but you can't hear a station 2 states over.
Right.
And that's kind of the way shortwave is. The propagation is different. You know, depending on sunspots, depending on time of day, depending on season, the signals actually land different places. The antenna that we're on 5110 is up in Monticello, Maine, and it's oriented where it's pointing toward Mexico City. So it's actually covering most of the central U.S. and then Mexico and then whatever else is down that direction. Mm-hmm. And Europe is not that far on the backside. So there are some people in Europe that do hear the station. So it's just interesting thing on where these shortwave signals might land.
Well, it is, and it's interesting too with radio. People just because you have a radio and a big antenna and what have you, of course, what really comes into play is the sun. You know, the sun is really nothing more. Well, I guess that's a pretty simplistic way of looking at it, but it's a nuclear reactor is what it is. And, of course, it's constantly belching out particles millions of miles into space. And, of course, the sun affects our transmissions. With most people that transmit on the, like you said, on the HF bands, the sun and what it does has a lot to it affects our transmissions.
Yeah, it does. And the interesting thing about the sun is it runs on cycles, and scientists have been plotting this for many years. It runs on an 11-year cycle, and at one point you're going to have great propagation and signals around the world. At the other point on that cycle, communications is going to be much more difficult, and it's pretty accurate how that cycle just continues every so often.
I've got a question that came in from you. We have a group of engineers up at the University of Utah that listen to us every Saturday night. And Tracy is an engineering student at the U, and she said, Tom, could you talk a little bit about what you did for FedEx with their telecommunications? Considering FedEx is such a large organization, it had to be quite a job to manage things.
Okay, well, I started with FedEx about 35 years ago and just retired 3 years ago, so I had 33 years with them. Back 35 years ago, we were basically a domestic company, in the U.S. This was in the early days of FedEx. And, of course, we went international. And my job was to take and build up the telecommunication structure internationally, to put the first networks into Europe and computer systems. And we negotiated with the government's radio frequencies to operate our radios with, and of course our own telephone system. So we did all that. We started in Europe first, and then over the years we expanded that into the Far East and South America. So anything that had to do with voice systems, data systems, or radio systems was under me. I had an engineering team I kept in Memphis, and we did the worldwide engineering of our networks. We hired technicians that resided in the foreign countries that were our eyes and ears and hands, at the remote place. They put the equipment in, and they would do troubleshooting when there were problems. And so that's kind of what we did. We actually evolved over the years. 35 years ago, networks bandwidth was much smaller. Bandwidth has gotten huge now. A lot of things have happened. We were one of the first companies, and particularly my international section, even within FedEx, was the first area that moved toward IP telephone technology, where we basically dumped all the old phone systems and phone companies and put in our own call managers and our own phone systems and managed our own phone systems. And that gave us the capability to route calls across our data network. So that was where we actually combined data and voice on our same networks. So if we had a call center, say, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and we had trouble, we could easily route those calls to a call center in El Salvador. And, you need to do that, because one of the things that we found, even though we had robust networks and we had redundancy built in, it's difficult in some of these, I'll call third world countries, to keep telecommunications going. For instance, our networks to get to El Salvador would go across countries that were volcanic ash down in Central America. So the networks were actually run by the phone companies, and the carriers actually aerial. They were on poles or whatever. And there's nothing to keep, a gorilla from getting up there and chewing that circuit in half.
Right.
And when I say gorilla, I don't mean gorillas like with guns, but we were also in some countries where there were gorillas like that. But we actually, we had animals that would take a network out, things like that. And, the interesting thing about technology with FedEx, we started out, we would put a 9.6 kilobit circuit into, let's say, Cayman Islands, and that would cost us maybe $15,000 a month for a circuit that small. And, we went to, in those locations, I had my engineers look at some satellite-based stuff, and we put in VSATs, which is, a very small aperture dish. And they were actually about 6 feet in diameter. But we gave those countries down there probably 2 or 3 times the bandwidth at much less cost. From $15,000 or $20,000 a month, we went down to maybe, $6,000-7,000 per month.
Right.
I started working with our engineers that do our domestic side, because they kind of controlled a lot of the things that we did in FedEx, although on the international side, we were able to really be entrepreneurs and spearhead things. And I went to them and I said, we've got to use the Internet. We've got to connect these people through the Internet. And, the response I got was, well, we thought about that, but, it's too dangerous, and, the risk is too high. And I said, you don't understand. We've got to do that. And we went from, $15,000 9.6 circuit to probably a 64 kilobit circuit by satellite for $6,000 to $8,000 per month. And then once we implemented VPN or the internet, we were able to get broadband internet connectivity in for just a few $100s a month. So we went from little bandwidth and high cost, and we turned that around and went to a lot of bandwidth at low cost. So
wow.
That's the kind of interesting things that we were involved in.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, again, people don't realize that radio in many different forms, whether it crosses into the IT realm, the whole RF thing, if you will, Tom, it plays such a vital part to the whole world for running major corporations like FedEx and providing communications, and same with being able to sit in our living room with our little $30 handheld, connect to the internet and talk to people all over the world right through your computer and your little handheld right in your house. It's amazing technology.
Yeah, FedEx County led the way with the mobile devices where we could track packages and so forth, and we were I think the first company in the U.S. to actually own our own 800 frequencies, not 800 number, but 800 megahertz frequencies,
right,
for our mobile data networks. And we ran a very expensive deal where, we would scan packages and through the vehicle, and it would come back into our computer system. But when you go overseas, all these frequencies basically the government feels they own all these frequencies, and you're for the military. And here you are coming from the United States saying you want those frequencies. So it was difficult. We were able to obtain those. I met a number of times with government officials in different countries, whether it be England or Belgium or places like that, Japan, and convinced them that we needed these frequencies and why we needed them for us. And we were able to do that, expand our radio networks and our data networks. And, it's a good feel for engineers out there. I'm glad you got some engineers listening. And it's exciting, the things that, you can get involved in.
Well, again, we've got a dedicated group up at the University of Utah that they've been tuning in for years. Of course, a lot of them graduate out. They're living on campus up there, and it's an honor to have them tune in. And they send a lot of great questions in. So anytime we can bring an engineer in like yourself and talk about it, it's definitely an inspiration. Speaking of inspirations, wanted to cover some other things. Of course, with you talking to the International Space Station several times. And again, that's something that any technician class licensee can do with not a lot of expensive equipment. I know that I mentioned to you on the phone, a guest that we had on the show before was Carol Perry. She has done so much for youth and education with amateur radio, and we received so many great letters after we had Carol on the show, which she passed on to us, and that's why we like to do shows on this. And when I came across your site, Tom, that's why I wanted to have you on the program. She's done so much for the young people, but you became friends with astronaut Doug Wheelock, and now Doug helps you out with your show. You want to talk a little bit about Doug and some of the things he's doing?
Yeah, I'll touch on it. Of course, as I mentioned, we worked Doug many times in just 1 month. In fact, it was kind of amazing. I think that we talked to him that many times, and after that, I kind of just sit back and I said, let's let other people have a chance to talk to the astronauts, because I had, as I mentioned, I had tried for a year and was having trouble getting to the space station. And all of a sudden, every day of the month, I was talking to him, and sometimes 3 times a day. But as I said, we sent Doug some famous barbecue for his first meal, and he was very happy to receive it. And after that, I stayed in touch with him, and he came to the Dayton Hamvention to thank us for it 1 year. We gave him a nice certificate and welcomed him aboard, and he sat down on our webcast and answered questions. And then after that, I stayed in touch with him and asked him if he would like to come again and just be a co-host with us. And 2 years ago, he was back with us at Dayton in our booth, signing autographs and taking pictures. And let me tell you, he's a a person that pulls a lot of people. We had long lines of people waiting to talk with Doug. So he was back with us 2 years ago. He was going to be with us last year. His father died last year right before ham benching, so he was unable to make it. I've talked to him again since then. He's indicated he wanted to be back with us again this year and has penciled in that Friday and Saturday. Now, I have not received any confirmation that, his calendar is sticking to those dates. Doug's a very busy person. He's got some missions coming up. He's got to go to Russia for some training. It was just really neat. You meet in this hobby, you meet a lot of neat friends and great people, like astronauts and other famous people and celebrities. And I've got a friend now that's the director, the producer of a ABC TV show, Last Man Standing, with Tim Allen, and we'll talk about that in a minute if you want to. But they took us out to Hollywood to webcast a special event out in Hollywood on the stage of Last Man Standing, where I met Tim Allen.
Well, yeah, that's definitely something I wanted to cover. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of celebrities that are amateur radio operators. I haven't been to Dayton for a while, but a couple of years ago, when I went out there, I was speaking with Bob Heil. Of course, Bob Heil is the pioneer, just like Les Paul and so many others. That we accredit the great sound that these bands are getting from Bob Heil's technology and his inventions. I was out there, and there was guitarist Joe Walsh, who's a ham radio operator, and Ronnie Millsap, country western singer. So there are a lot of celebrities that are in the hobby. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about Tim Allen. Of course, actor, movie star, comedian, all around great guy. That had to be kind of fun meeting him and being part of that.
Yeah, well, it was, I think a year and a half ago or so, they asked us to come out to Hollywood. They were aware of our webcasting and wanted us to webcast a special radio event on the stage of Last Man Standing. Now, on the show Last Man Standing, Tim Allen plays an amateur radio operator. And it's not too much into the show, but occasionally, you'll see him sitting at the radio or whatever. So they asked us to come out, and this was a special event on the stage, and where they made contacts from the stage with other people, and they had a very nice QSL card. A card is something that hams send other hams when they talk to each other, and it had a picture of, Tim Allen and others there. So anyway, I went out, and Tim had just passed his ham test, and he did not want anyone to know that he had his license. And here I am, I'm wanting to be the first in the world to break the news publicly that Tim has his license, and I'm hearing that he really didn't want people to know. So Kathy and I had an opportunity to meet him. We spent a whole week watching him rehearse and seeing the stage and setup and everything. But Kathy and I met him one day. We had a meeting arranged. We met him out back behind the studio, and I said I would like to announce that you got your license. And he was a little hesitant to give us permission on that. And I said, well, Tim, I said, it's in the FCC database. The word is going to start getting out. People will know. He goes, I didn't know that. And but the thing is, Tim Allen is not Tim Allen's real name. And I think if anybody just Googles it, they can get his real name. But Tim Allen's not a real name. But anyway, Tim said, sure, go ahead and you can announce it. Just don't tell them my call letters. So we thought at least we came away with something positive there. We were able to announce on our show, we had a special, a news alert, and we announced that Tim Allen had received his ham license. Now, Tim's a very busy person, and I don't expect him to be getting on any of the repeaters or talking to people out there. But Tim likes technology, and he likes to be able to communicate with his family. So, there's all other type of radios that you can buy, but since his character was a ham radio operator, and since about, 15 or 20 people on the staff actually got their license over a period of a few months, Tim decided to study and take the test. So he took the test, he passed it, and I think if Tim ever got on the radio, I think there'd be such a pile up of people calling him that the frequency would be useful.
Sure.
And he's a very busy person. He flies out to Las Vegas every weekend. He does shows there, and he comes back, and he's on the last man standing for probably 5 days a week. I don't know when he rests. So maybe someday if he ever does retire, we might hear him on the ham bands.
Well, that would be great. But it's what's good about it, Tom, is it promotes the hobby. And when you see these celebrities get involved, and like you said, of course, Tim's a very busy individual, but a lot of the astronauts have their amateur radio licenses. Of course, probably one of the most famous hams is Senator Barry Goldwater, who was very active on the air years ago, and it's a great hobby. It's a great thing, and it's good to see people with notoriety promote it, and hopefully that'll encourage others to get involved with it, because it's a great hobby, it's a lot of fun, and yet it's such a useful tool in the event of an emergency of any size.
And another famous, if we're trying to talk about famous people and what their possibilities are here, King Hussein of Jordan.
Right.
Now, when you're a king, I don't think there's much of a test you have to take.
Right.
You just say, I'm getting me a ham license. You probably a king. He buys him probably a few $100,000 of radios, and probably puts a few $100,000 into the antenna system. So a lot of people talked to King Hussein before he passed away. I never talked to him, but I knew he was out there. And he was just on the ham radio. He was just a good old guy, People would ask, "What do I call you?" He said, "Just call me Hussein."
Right. Yeah, he had an unbelievable station. There's a lot of every now and then, if you get on the internet and look at some of these oil sheiks in Saudi Arabia and Dubai, there are some amazing looking ham radio stations for sure.
Oh, there are, and I've talked to a number of them, and they always have a great signal coming out of that area.
They do. In our chat room, of course, we're picked up on the Inception Radio Network. We had quite a few people in chat stirring around, bringing different things up. A couple of our listeners were mentioning about shortwave radio. Maybe we could talk a little bit about this. Again, for years, especially during the Cold War, shortwave radio was such an instrumental part for the military. And what I find interesting, Tom, today even, is pirate radio stations that are out there. I know a lot of the big stations are now defunct, like Radio Beijing. There's quite a few of them that are no longer on the air. But I also understand there is somewhat of a resurgence of shortwave communication, and you can hear a lot of interesting things if you tune around.
Well, let me just say one thing, and you brought up pirate radio. We had a special show 2 weeks ago on pirate radio, and again, it is archived. You really should go to YouTube and look under W5KUB and pull up that show from 2 weeks ago about pirate radio. We had probably one of the most famous pirates on. Now, the shortwave station I'm on right now, or not this moment, but I'm on every week on 5110, is owned by an ex-pirate radio guy. He was the famous guy. He's licensed now. He owns several stations. It's quite a story how he moved from pirating to being legal. And it was but this story is about Alan Wiener, and his station right now that I'm on, the shortwave station, is in Monticello, Maine, and let me tell you, Alan, you've got to see the show. They bought a ship. They bought like a 200-foot ship. The engine didn't run. They had it towed out to international waters. They put on a pirate radio station off of Long Island. The Coast Guard, the FBI, everybody kept, trying to shut him down, and eventually they went aboard and arrested him, and they took him into custody. They towed the boat back. They took him to court, but they never filed any charges or convicted him of anything, because Alan kept saying, "Hey, I'm in international waters. The FCC doesn't have any jurisdiction here." And it's just an amazing story. Alan even put on a pirate TV station on Channel 6 in New York. It lasted one day. But, he was 16 years old, and the FCC had to send his daddy a letter saying, "Your son is operating illegal." Now, how would you feel being a 16-year-old and the FCC sends a letter to your daddy?
Yeah. Little scary.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, it's an amazing show. That show probably pulled more viewers than any show we've done this year. And, it was about 2 weeks ago. I think I have it titled Pirate Radio. It's just, and Alan has so much to talk about his days in pirate radio and AM and FM and shortwave. We didn't get to all of it. So we're going to have him on the show again probably in the next month or so, and just continue where we left off. Shortwave is, hey, that's what got me started into ham radio.
Oh, me too. It was, and there's a lot of stuff out there. One thing that people can do, of course, we talk about the advent of the internet and what it's done for the radio hobby, and whether you're a ham radio operator or a short, of course, ham radio operators have their ham shacks, shortwave listeners have their listening posts, and then, of course, there's the whole hobby of scanning and stuff like that, listening to local police and what have you. But one thing that people can look into is, even with shortwave radio, we hear a lot of these, people say, "What's that funny noise?" or that's, these digital signals. Now with very inexpensive equipment, you can actually connect your shortwave receiver right to your computer, and there is software out there for free that can decode a lot of that stuff. So when you hear all those pulses and beats and hits and noises and stuff, there's data there, and of course some of it's not. Some of it is encrypted, but quite a bit of it can be weather satellites. WeFax. You can see what get weather radar or weather satellite pictures. There's a lot of stuff that you can delve into in shortwave listening.
Yeah, there really is. I'd like to jump back just a second. We were talking about just interesting people, and you mentioned Bob Heil. Bob's a good friend of mine. I see Bob occasionally. I'm down in Memphis. He's up in St. Louis area, but we see each other at shows and different things. And Bob's been a big supporter of our webcast, and we have a lot of his microphones and other equipment that we use. But we did a show with Bob, and if people are interested in just wild stories, let me tell you, you pull up our archived interview with Bob Heil. It's about his life story, getting a ham radio license at around the same age, around 14, 15, 16 years old. And let me tell you, Bob invented the big sounds, the amplifiers. He's got all the microphones. And Bob actually, when the Who came from England to New York, they called Bob on the phone and says, "We're going to be playing in New York tomorrow. We need your amplifiers."
Exactly. All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guest is Tom Medlin. Again, Tom, thank you so much for being here tonight. You want to pick back up with Bob Heil? Sorry, that commercial came up too quick.
Sure, I will. I was saying that Bob, even at the age of 16, he took his ham radio experience and turned that knowledge into a business. That's where he learned about microphones and speakers and audio, is through ham radio. And Bob built these big, massive amplifiers. Nobody else had them back in those early days. And these big bands would call Bob. And there was one night the Who came over from England. They landed in New York, and they called Bob. Here he is, 16 or 17 years old. And they said, we're going to be playing a show, in New York tomorrow night, and we need your amplifiers. And here there's a 16-year-old kid. How's he going to get his amplifiers there? The Who leased a 727 aircraft and flew Bob and his amplifiers up to New York for that show. And that happened over and over with different groups. And in fact, Bob is one of the inventors of the talk box. You know the talk box? I think Peter Frampton and others used the talk box. Bob built that and gave it, I think, to Peter for a birthday present. So that's a little interesting story there. Of course, Joe Walsh of the Eagles, he's a ham and a very close friend of Bob's. And it's just amazing, this kind of stories that ham radio operators are associated with. And again, that's another show archived on W5KUB under our YouTube channel. If you go to W5KUB, you can pick the show out about Bob Heil. But again, I would like to invite everybody out there to go on Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time, to W5KUB.com, where we stream a live webcast of our show every Tuesday night. It's also, as Pat mentioned, on a simulcast on shortwave radio. We do have a chat room where you can ask questions and talk with other people in the chat room. We even open up phone lines, just as we're doing on this show tonight, where you can actually talk to our guest. One of the interesting things coming up, and let me just throw this out real quick.
Sure.
Tuesday night show is going to be on the Heard Island, the expedition. Now, we're talking ham radio here. Let me tell our listeners what a de-expedition is. You know what an expedition is, where people go to a foreign land and explore. Well, that's kind of what hams do, but it's called de-expedition. DX means long distance, or if I'm working DX, that means I'm working stations from a long ways away. So they call it a de-expedition. They get a group together, and they go to these islands. A lot of hams try to see how many countries they can work and confirm. There are a number of countries that nobody lives on. No people there. So
Right.
These hams will take tents and radio equipment and generators, and they'll go live on these islands and make radio contacts so a person can get a new country. That's fixing to happen in just a few weeks, the Heard Island de-expedition. Next week, we have the Heard Island people on our show Tuesday night to talk about this. Now, Heard Island is a volcanic island south of India, about 1,000 miles from the South Pole. And if you'll just Google Heard Island, that's heard, like I heard it through the grapevine, Heard Island, you'll see that volcano there, and it looks like ice. And the weather is probably pretty severe down there, always wind, snow, something going on. It's not the best living conditions, but they're going down here. This is a 45-day trip. They will be operating for 21 days. So that means there's 24 days that they will be traveling. So it'll take them about 2 weeks to get there. They'll be there 21 days, and it'll take them 2 weeks to get back. And we're going to be talking to them on our Tuesday night show about this, the expedition. And then on future Tuesday night shows by satellite, we're trying to arrange, and we think we've got it working. We're going to try to bring in live updates on our Tuesday night show from Heard Island, and I want to see them standing next to the penguins out there.
Yeah, well, and again, these de-expeditions, they go to so many interesting places. What was the one the big group just went to here? Actually, not that far from the Caribbean, one of the islands, one of the sanctuaries that it took, 9 years to get permission, Navassa, to be able to go back there. People that do this, it's costly because, of course, they do reach out for donations, but most of the amateur radio operators do it because they love it and they self-finance it. I mean, it's like Herd Island. You don't buy a Southwest ticket and fly there. I mean, it's a major expense to get airfare and the permission from, I believe Herd Island is controlled by the Australian government, and get special boats that are equipped to get you there. And like you said, horrendous living conditions. It's a feat.
Well, the Herd Island, just as many of these other expeditions, probably cost around $500,000 to pull that off. So, you know, a lot of that money comes out of their own pocket. You know, a lot of that money, of course, they can have some fundraisers and donations and things like that. But it is a major business deal that you know, that they have to pull all the pieces together to make it work.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and again, places that they're putting their life on the line. If somebody gets sick, if you have a heart attack or break a leg or what have you, it's really a life and death situation to get out of there, and you may not get out of there alive if something happens.
Well, and there are written plans, operating plans on these expeditions. And for instance, Herd Island, it's definitely covered in there. What happens, you know, if there's an emergency, medical emergency, and they usually have someone that's medically trained or a doctor or someone. But you know, there have been cases where people have actually died during an expedition like that. So you got to open the book up and decide, what are you going to do? Do we call the expedition off? You know, we've spent $500,000 getting here, and it's going to take 20 days to get back.
Right.
Do we continue with it? Do we try to send the body back? So, you know, all those things have to be thought about and covered in their operating manual.
It's pretty interesting stuff. You know, it's interesting. I'm sitting here talking with you, Tom, and speaking about Bob Heil. Of course, that's what we use in our studio, is all Heil microphones. He, without a doubt, his name is heard all over the world through commercial broadcasters and, of course, ham radio operators alike. An amazing person. I would like to throw out there, too, again, Tom's show is amazing. But a little plug for Bob. After you listen to Tom on Tuesday night, if you can't get enough of it, on Wednesday night, Bob Heil and the group, they have, what is the name of their show?
It's called Ham Nation.
Ham Nation, which is very similar to your show, although they don't take call-ins, I don't believe. But it's very educational as well. So there's plenty.
Yeah, there's just not enough ham radio programs on. I think there's just a couple of us, and
right.
we're trying to get the word out.
Without a doubt. Dayton is coming up, of course, as you mentioned in the beginning of the show. Dayton is the Dayton Hamvention is one of the, if not the largest. I know I've been to Dayton many times. It's been going on for many, many years. I know there's people that work on this convention on a full-time basis. It's their full-time job to put it on for the 3 days. It's coming up in May. You guys broadcast there. Are you going to be at Dayton again this year in 2016?
Yeah, we sure will. It'll be our 35th consecutive year to attend. And we've got a very nice place right in the center of all the inside exhibits. In fact, we're just about next to Bob Heil. And we're in a very good area for people to find us. So if you guys want to go to Hamvention and come by and see us, and we'll put you on our webcast. Let me say this. We go live. You know, the Hamvention is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But we go live with our webcast on Wednesday, and we drive the 550 miles. And our webcast is actually live while we're driving to Dayton. So we'll be live on Wednesday. We'll be live inside the building setting up on Thursday. You never know who you'll see. I guarantee you Bob Heil will come by and say hello and others. Then the show is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we'll broadcast our drive back on Sunday. Now, one of the interesting things about our drive, it may seem a little boring, but 4 years ago, while we were webcasting our drive back, we got stopped north of Nashville doing 89 and a 70. And we had people all over the world in the chat room that were taking up the collection to bail us out of jail.
Interesting.
So you never know what's going to happen on these things.
Exactly. And it's, again, with the advent of the internet and the streaming technology, I remember, Tom, and I'm sure you do, there used to be a character. I don't know if I called him a character because that's what he looked like. But I remember going to Dayton Hamvention years ago, and there was this guy. He dressed up kind of peculiar. He used to wear a suit and tie, and he had a helmet. A helmet with a cam on top of it, and he just walked all over the show taking photos and film and stuff. I don't know if he's still around. But
let me. I don't know if you're talking about us or not, but I thought first you were talking about Sam up there. Now Sam usually wears a suit and a hard hat, but he has actually a crank up tower on top of his helmet. He can turn the little crank on it and it'll go up and down. And he's got a little beam on top, and that's really interesting. Now, the first few years, we did have a helmet cam we wore, but we didn't dress up in suits because we were outside the first 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with the helmet cam was, and the internet back then, in the low bandwidth we used to have back then, anytime you turn your head, it would be a big blur to people watching.
Right.
Just streaks. And everybody was getting seasick and having to, take seasick pills. And, we kind of went away from the helmet cam, but if you go to Dayton Hamvention, we're still known as the helmet cam. In fact, down at the bottom of their page, there's a link and a picture of our helmet cam that we wore 15 years ago. Now, we don't do that anymore. We're on a mobile cart with our video, and we also have tripods and stuff. But And let me say that, hey, there's a girl that comes by, and she'll be by our booth and on again this year. She does something to her hair, and she makes her hair stand up about 2 feet tall, and she puts an antenna on top of it. What do you think about that? Aren't hams crazy?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's Sam that you're talking about. He was there for years. I remember seeing him, and I used to, and one thing about Dayton, and I think anyone who's gone to it for years, you always got to dress accordingly. I've been to Dayton where it snowed, and I've been to Dayton where it's so hot you're dying of the heat. You've got to be prepared, but I believe it's the gentleman you were talking about. He used to wear a white suit.
Yeah, I think it was Sam. I think his call is N-A-V-E-S, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting. We've got
You're absolutely right. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, we've got a couple minutes left, Tom. What's on the horizon for W5KUB.com? You're going to be again, you'll be at Dayton, but just broadcasting every week. Any other plans, or just continue to bring on unique guests?
Man, we are expanding our show like crazy. It's just exploding. I'm going to be adding 4 new co-hosts to the show in the next month or so. We just added a co-host, Frank Howell, K4FMH from Mississippi. He's going to join us probably once a month. We've got a lot of new segments on, like, international. We've got antenna segments. We've got a roving reporter that goes to all the hamfests, be showing pictures, showing kits. So our Tuesday night show is really, really getting large. We bring in guests from around the world on there. We do other special events like the Dayton Hamvention that will be coming up in May. Looking forward to that. We do hamventions like the Huntsville Hamfest in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Von Braun Center. That's a really great one. We'll probably go to some others. We'll go to a Memphis Hamfest. We'll probably do Field Day. All those things are happening. And then we do have special webcasts, during a month where we might do a 3-hour show on Arduino. And we show, I have a friend that will be here that wrote a book called Arduino for Ham Radio, and the ARRL published it, but he'll bring all those Arduino devices, and we'll show people how you can take a little simple $3 Arduino and replace the inside of your antenna rotor, or make a lightning detector, or a radio, or just a keyer, or a Morse code receiver, reader. I mean, there's just all kinds of things we can do in different type shows that we will have on technology. And I just like to invite people to come to our site. Again, we're only live if there's a special event going, or on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock on w5kb.com. But our site is up year-round. The chat room is up year-round, and just chatting here, you might catch one of us, say hello, and would love to have you on there. And if any of you guys will join our show Tuesday night, let us know in the chat room that you found out about us through this radio show. I'd love to hear.
Well, sounds great, Tom. Well, I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to check in more, and I would love to, down the road, maybe in the summertime after Dayton, get you and the guys, get you all on the program and, again, talk more. It's so interesting. It's such a great hobby and so much fun. And like I said, for me, it's an honor to talk to all these guests, but to be in the hobby and then to actually be a commercial broadcaster was kind of my dream come true. I want to wish you a great weekend. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll stay in touch. I'll be in on Tuesday night to join the show in the chat room, and I would love to get you back again.
Okay, sounds great, Pat. I really enjoyed it tonight.
Okay, my friend. Take care. God bless, and have a great weekend.
All right, thank you.
Right, bye-bye. Good night. All right, everybody. Tom Medlin, go check out his website at w5kub.com. A great guy, a great show. We've got Ronald Murphy Jr., author, paranormal researcher, coming up on the other side. Fringe Radio on K-Talk, KTKK AM 630.
Special report, the 8th Republican debate. GOP candidates for the White House have taken to the debate stage in New Hampshire ahead of that state's primary. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum.
It was perhaps the most awkward opening to a presidential debate ever, with the order of introduction getting mixed up and candidates left standing in the wings. Later in the night, another uncomfortable moment as Donald Trump turned on the booing audience during a heated back and forth with Jeb Bush over the use of eminent domain. Trump complained that he couldn't get tickets to the debate from the RNC because they all went to donors and special interest groups. Earlier in the program, Senator Rubio attacked Christie's record as governor, citing bond rating downgrades for New Jersey. Christie shot back that Rubio is good at memorizing 25-second speeches, but he lacks leadership experience. Steve Kastenbaum in Bedford, New Hampshire.
There are 7 Republicans taking part in tonight's debate. GOP contender Carly Fiorina wasn't given a berth at the main event because she did not meet ABC's polling criteria. I'm Ann Cates. The United States will work with the United Nations Security Council on significant measures to hold North Korea accountable for its launching of a rocket, which it claimed was for a satellite. Correspondent Elise Labott.
Just on the idea that the satellite is really a cover for a long-range missile. So the idea that North Korea would launch a satellite into space is really not so much concern. It's the range of the missile, and that's why everyone is so concerned.
New York City officials say it could be weeks before they know what caused a deadly construction crane collapse. Investigators are working to recover the mobile crane's computer to see if it can provide clues as to why the 565-foot-long boom toppled to the ground yesterday in lower Manhattan. The crane fell as it was being lowered amid 20-mile-an-hour winds in a snow squall. And Twitter says all tweets will continue to be sent in real time. BuzzFeed had reported that algorithms would be used to send out tweets rather than have them go out on a live stream. I'm Ann Cates.
Looking to save money on Medicare Part D? Switch your prescriptions to Walgreens. With copays as low as $1, you could be looking at some real savings. And now you can preview the cost of your scripts before you fill with Walgreens' new Medicare prescription copay quote. And that's kind of a big deal. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy.
Quote subject to change and available only for select Part D plans. $1 copay applies to Tier 1 generics.
Ace has the lighting options you want and the answers you need. Right now, 4 packs of Fight Warm White 60-watt LED bulbs are just $10.99 each after $12 instant savings. Stop by your neighborhood Ace today and save over 50% on 4 packs of our longest-lasting LED bulbs, now just $10.99 each.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Ace Rewards members get savings instantly in store. Offer valid on SKU 3516-317 now through 2/29 at participating stores. Store stock only. See store for details.
Security is tight in the San Francisco area ahead of tomorrow's Super Bowl 50. Correspondent Jim Roop.
Law enforcement's presence has been steadily increasing as the crowds have been increasing all week. But as San Francisco Police Chief Greg Scheer reminds us,
there's so much going on behind the scenes that nobody's going to see.
A lot of that unseen stuff revolves around a secret joint command center near Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. What you'll see, however, some 90 K-9 units, rifle-toting officers riding on armored personnel vehicles, SWAT, dozens of bomb teams, and security in the sky. Jim Roop, San Francisco.
Tickets to the Super Bowl are still available for a price. According to officials at online ticket marketplace StubHub, the cheapest ticket to tomorrow's game is $3,000. StubHub reports Super Bowl ticket prices are averaging about $4,500. And for suites and seating along the sidelines, prices run into the tens of thousands of dollars. StubHub has already sold 5,000 Super Bowl tickets.
What's the best way to bring people together?
T-shirts!
T-shirts. Custom T-shirts that you design online with custom ink. The fun, easy way to make shirts you'll love for your group or occasion. Custom Ink has created over 50 million shirts for families, teams, reunions, church groups, cheerleaders, companies big and small. So go online and see how easy it is to design your own shirts with Custom Ink's online design lab. Our website has tons of fonts and amazing artwork. And our team of professional inkers will make sure your shirts turn out perfectly. Order one shirt or thousands. On-time delivery is guaranteed, and we'll even ship your order absolutely free.
Start designing your custom ink t-shirts today and see why 99% of our customers say they would order from us again. Visit customink.com.
What's the best way to bring people together?
T-shirts!
T-shirts. Custom T-shirts that you design online with custom ink. The fun, easy way to make shirts you'll love for your group or occasion. Custom Ink has created over 50 million shirts for families, teams, reunions, church groups, cheerleaders, companies big and small. So go online and see how easy it is to design your own shirts with Custom Ink's online design lab. Our website has tons of fonts and amazing artwork. And our team of professional inkers will make sure your shirts turn out perfectly. Order one shirt or thousands. On-time delivery is guaranteed, and we'll even ship your order absolutely free.
Start designing your custom ink t-shirts today and see why 99% of our customers say they would order from us again. Visit customink.com.
Welcome back to Fringe Radio, Part 3. on February 6th in the year 2016. Hope everybody is having a great evening so far. I want to thank Tom Medlin again for coming on the program. Again, if you have interest in the hobby, and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that, and just to give a little update on that before we get rolling, of course, one thing I enjoy about the hobby is there's so many facets, and I've had another part of the hobby that I enjoy is listening to aircraft transmissions. Find it quite interesting. And I believe I talked about it a week or two ago, but I was actually listening. I was working one night a little bit after midnight, and I was listening to a jet, an aircraft that was flying from east to west. Actually, a flight, we actually narrowed it down. It was a flight that was flying from Philadelphia to San Francisco. And the pilot was conversing with the tower about bright lights being seen. And was curious if there was a radar signature. The Salt Lake City ATC or the Salt Lake Center indicated no radar contact, but indicated to the pilot that he was flying over Nephi, Utah. I turned this information over to Erica Lukes, who's the MUFON state director for the state of Utah. And she's actually working with Bill Puckett from UFOs Northwest to find out more information on this. Again, kind of a UFO, ufology or UFO sighting report that came from an aircraft, from an airliner. And again, so many different things that you can take part of in the hobby of amateur radio. Again, Tom's webcast, his show is his website, www.w5kub.com. Go check it out on Tuesday nights if you have interest in the hobby at 8 o'clock Central Time. Again, he brings on many different guests, from celebrities to NASA astronauts, and they cover a wide range of stuff. And what I like about the webcast is that when they talk about different items, you can physically see what they're talking about. They actually bring examples and stuff, and plus they do giveaways right on the air. So again, check it out. Again, Fringe Radio's here every Saturday night live from 6 till 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8 o'clock till midnight on the East Coast, 5 till 9 on the West Coast. We want to say good evening to all of our listeners that listen to us live via the Listen Live link at k-talk.com. The Inception Radio Network, a new network that has picked us up, is Deprogrammed Radio in the United Kingdom. And, of course, up and down the Wasatch Front on good old KTKK AM 630. You can find us on the web at fringeradioshow.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter as well. And, of course, as we always say, it's an honor to be a part of K-Talk Radio. The station's website is www.k-talk.com. We have been in business for 51 years. We're the third oldest AM talk radio station in the country. And it's an honor to do this show for United Broadcasting. Independent radio stations are few.